Okay, people, thousands of you have been asking for it, and here it is again. Another week with the Midnight Skeptic. Here's my play-in music. You are listening to KPCA LP, Petaluma, California, at 103.3 FM and worldwide at www.kpca.fm. And this is the Midnight Skeptic. The views of the Midnight Skeptic are not, repeat, not necessarily the views of KPCA or any of its affiliates. Okay, my views are not necessarily the views of Petaluma Community Access or its radio station, this one that I'm recording on right now, or its TV stations, or any of the people that work down there, although they damn well should be their views. If you people that are listening out there, my thousands and thousands of listeners, want to send me any suggestions about how this show can be improved, hate mail, death threats, I welcome them all. Okay? So, let's get going with the shout-outs. Oh, well, where do you send all these things to? You send it to the Midnight Skeptic at gmail.com. It's all one word, all lowercase, so easy to remember. All right. Shout-outs real quick. I'm going to try to get through this real quick. But before I do that, I got to remind all my listeners and viewers out there that I, the Midnight Skeptic, am proudly woke. W-O-K-E. Woke. That's me. And my definition of woke is kindness, acceptance, appreciation of all of people's differences and different aspirations and the way they live their lives, as long as they don't hurt other people. Well, that eliminates just about all Republicans. So here we go. Shout outs. Internationally, Anchor.fm is the parent company to Spotify, and it sends it out worldwide. I'm on Spotify, so if you want to listen that way, be my guest. Okay, locally, well, let's see, international listeners. I have a couple in New Zealand and Australia, Ireland, the UK, Germany, Spain, Czech Republic, and the total of them all occasionally is 12 to 15, I would imagine. Not many, but they're out there. You know who you are. Okay. Locally, Nariman and Tom and Nancy Throw and Kevin and Lori Burke up in Katati, and Dennis and Megan down in Tiburon. And congratulations on your promotion, Dennis. Again, I hope you're enjoying your new, better paying job. Okay. And, okay, up in Sacramento, Dave and Rosita Takach. I hope you're feeling better, Rosita. And Mickey Huff, the godfather of Project Censored. Okay. And I'm going to have a little bit more to say about that in the coming show. Okay, over in Sebastopol, Rich and Kathy Berger, down to Pacifica, Stan and Kathy Gustafson, and Susan Miller, who I understand is quite lefty in her views. Stan said she listens in every now and then. Okay, down to L.A., Jackie Kolar and her daughters Melanie and Samantha. They listen in periodically. And then over to Arizona, my brother Brandon and Mina, and their daughter Andrea, who's a nurse there. Take care of yourself, Andrea. And Karina Hilliard, the snake removal lady. Yeah, are you going to get your degree soon in, I think, biological sciences or herpetology, if they offer that specialty? Okay, the Sonora crowd, Bob and Sandy Fisher. I hope, Bob, you're doing okay. And Martha, who's also a nurse, take care of yourself. And Judy May, Leonidas Maciel, Darrell Larson, the Bronc Rider. I guess it's been a few years since you've ridden a wild bronc. But and then all the way down to Mexico City, Rosie Lopez Negrete, and then over to Florida, Amelia Beamer, and then Nelson and Alice Lydell, up to the Raleigh-Durham area, Herr Dr. David Rubin, ex-roommate, ex-lung doctor, and then finally up to Long Island, Geraldine Goldfinger. Okay. Again, I'm still trying to get as much good news as I can find. Personally, I hate being negative Nelly all the time. And there's a article that I'm going to read here later if we have the time for it. It's by Michelle Goldberg. I really appreciate her writing. And I subscribe to the New York Times and the Gray Lady. And she is one of their periodic column writers for them. And then she appears now and then on my Lefty Propaganda TV, MSNBC, on various hosts. Chris Hayes has her now and then. Rachel Maddow has her now and then. And then Alex Wagner has taken over the Tuesday through Friday slot right after Chris Hayes. Mondays only is Rachel Maddow now. And Alex Wagner was a good choice for them. I really appreciate her views of things. And then after Alex Wagner is, oh boy, brain freezes. It'll come to me. I don't need to sit here with dead air trying to think of it. Okay, good news. We're going to start off with good environmental news. The U.S. nuclear industry are shooting to more than double their electricity output over the next 3 decades. Okay? The massive scaling up will be done by a new type of smaller modular reactors, a new generation of nuclear reactors. The U.S. Energy Information Administration says that 90 gigawatts, and it's hard for me to imagine how much that really is, but it's a lot. 90 gigawatts of nuclear-powered electricity can be added to the grid by 2050. The new generation of modular, smaller nuclear reactors are safe. The Midnight Skeptic guarantees it. Okay? You heard it from the horse's mouth. The new generation of smaller, modular nuclear reactors that are coming online as we speak are completely safe. All right? Now, here's a couple of recommendations from the Midnight Skeptic. 2 things for all my listeners out there. Subscribe to The Morning Heresy. And it's The Morning, capital Heresy. Heresy. It's written by Paul Fidalgo. He's quite funny in his writings about what he writes about, which is a little bit of everything. He is the communications director of CFI, the Center for Inquiry. That is the parent company of the magazine that I subscribe to, the Skeptical Inquirer. Let's see, The Morning Heresy, Paul Fidalgo. And number 2, the Project Censored newsletter. Go to projectcensored.org. And if you want a well-written newsletter into your inbox, I don't think it's every day, but at least once a week. And they write about the news that didn't make the news. That's their phrase that they use to advertise themselves. Okay, little bit of bad news. I'm sorry about that. Right-wing cult followers of the orange sociopathic bloat bag are threatening Judge Bruce Reinhardt. Well, who is he? Okay, he's the federal judge who signed the FBI search warrant to search Mar-a-Lago, which is the home of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Reinhardt and his family have been threatened. That's just how Republican MAGA heads roll. Death threats, hate mail, walking around with their AK-47s strapped across their chests like they are doing in Phoenix in front of the FBI building. I guess they really can't get it up, and so that's their substitute for their manliness. Okay, Reinhardt and his family are now the targets of GOP hate mongers and extremists. U.S. Marshals have been assigned to his house and him and his family for protection. This is all extremely bad news. This is a preview of what our country will be like if we don't vote out all Republicans in the upcoming election. All right. Good news. Good news, good news. Librarians are fighting back against right-wing book banning, anti-learning, terrorists, and MAGA heads. Okay, case in point, Amanda Jones is suing Citizens for a New Louisiana. Okay, CFNL. And 2 men, Michael Lunsford, who is the head of CFNL, and Ryan James, a Facebook user, for defamation. Most of my thousands of listeners out there probably can figure out what this Facebook user posted on Facebook. My throat, excuse me, I gotta get a sip. Okay, August 9th, 2022, that's like, last Monday. Okay, she filed the complaint, Amanda Jones did, the librarian, of Livingston Parish, Louisiana. The defendants, Michael Lunsford and Ryan James, have accused her of, quote, promoting pornography and being a pedophile. You're going to see that more and more and more as the November elections this year get ever nearer. Pedophile, grooming. That's what it has come down to. We don't have 2 political parties in this country anymore. We used to have 2 political parties that just pushed their vision of how this country should be governed. Well, no more. We have one party that has any interest in governing at all, and that's the Democratic Party. The other one have descended into the hellhole of MAGAism and worship of the orange sociopathic bloat bag. All they want is just the power now. And I'm saying that about all Republican politicians, with the exception maybe of Liz Cheney and the guy that's not going to be running again this year. Can't remember his name. I'm riffing, and I had a brain freeze on the guy's name. He's on the January 6th Investigation Commission. Okay, I'm off the topic again. Michael Lunsford and Ryan James have accused her of promoting pornography and being a pedophile. Photos of her with a target-like image superimposed on her were circulated online, and threats to show up at her library were also posted. You know who's making these threats. It's Republicans. Okay, Amanda Jones, is the 2021 School Library Journal National Librarian of the Year. And she's also president of the Louisiana Association of School Librarians. She herself has a child in the Livingston Parish school system. I wouldn't be surprised at all if her kid is getting threats also from the MAGA head cultists. Livingston Parish, incidentally, has the highest rate of children in foster care in Louisiana. Let's let that sink in. The book banners and book burners don't want books in libraries that kids can access them if they are written by people of color, if they are written by anybody from the LGBTQ community, and because we don't want our kids to learn about things like that. Okay. And then a lot of the kids are just, I don't know, abandoned or abused in some way in Livingston Parish, Louisiana. So they are taken up by the foster care system. And since it's Louisiana, I don't imagine that it is of a very high quality. I'm prejudiced against most states in the Deep South. That's my prejudice, and I haven't been proven wrong very often. Okay? Bad news, in a related story to this, the Keller Independent School District Administration is asking the campus staff and librarians to, quote unquote, review books that were challenged last year. They have a whole list of them. I saw it, but I'm not going to regale you with every single title there. The vast majority of them I'm not familiar with myself. The current books challenges list, this is compiled from last year, 2021, includes the usual suspects, plus the Bible. Somebody challenged it as being full of violence and weird sexual practices, like sleeping with your father, owning slaves, etc., etc. Okay, somebody, I'm sure that they did this just to get a rise out of the right-wing cultists of the sociopathic bloat bag. And, okay, the Bible, okay. Yay! The graphic version of Anne Frank's diary. Now, I haven't read Anne Frank's, the diary of Anne Frank, let alone the graphic version of it, which is a graphic novel version of it. Uh, Keeping You a Secret by Julianne Peters. That's another book that was on the list. I had heard of it, but I've not read it. Girls Like Us by Gail Giles, capital Giles. And of course, Genderqueer by our own Maya Kobabe. I've talked about her many times on my show. She's a local girl. She's a woman now. I mean, she's like 32. But she wrote this book, and it is, okay, I'm talking about the book Genderqueer. It is the most banned book of 2021. There's a literary group that keeps track of banned books. And, for 2021, Maya Kobabe made the cut as the most banned book. And I've said before that I would like a goodly percentage of my thousands and thousands of listeners out there to go out and buy this book if you want a very heartfelt book about the trials and tribulations of a young girl growing up. I mean, it starts out when she's, I think, about 7 or 8 or 9. And she's anyway not in puberty yet, but I mean it's difficult enough for young people to go through their puberty as it is without having doubts about your gender or your sexuality. And the term genderqueer is how she refers to herself now, and she claims that she is asexual, meaning she's not attracted to people sexually of either gender. Okay, anyway, Maya Kobabe, M-A-I-A, capital K-O-B-A-B-E. Please go out and buy this book. I read it, and the only stupid-ass MAGA heads, Republican cultists of the orange sociopathic bloat bag, that object to this, I'm quite sure, are people that have not read it. I did read it. And out of the 340 some odd pages of it, and it's a graphic novel, by the way, so it's pictures, so which makes it easier for Republicans to read. One of those pages depicts a sexual act, and it's not even I didn't quite understand the act or what either of the parties was getting out of it. Anyway, see for yourself. It's not pornographic. It's just thought-provoking and very empathetic toward young girls who are growing up. Especially in rural Petaluma. She went to Petaluma High School, as a teenager. So, I mean, adolescence is difficult enough without having doubts about your own identity thrown into the mix. Okay, enough of that. Genderqueer. Go out and get it. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl. Now, I haven't read the book itself, but there was a movie about that, and it was made into a movie, and it's written by Jesse Andrews. Now, first name is capital Jessie. I'm not sure whether that's male or female who wrote this, but it was shown on TV, and it was made into a movie. How bad, in the opinion of stupid-ass MAGA heads, could it be? Okay, going on. The Bluest Eye, of course, by Toni Morrison. The award-winning book, MAGA heads, damn it. Stupid-ass MAGA heads. The Bluest Eye by Toni Morrison. Okay. all, okay, and on this list, there's the title of the book, there's the author, there's the date that it was challenged, and then in the right-hand column, who challenged it. And all of them say parent. Okay, except for one. And I think it was, well, I forget what it was. But all of them were some stupid Trump-following MAGA head that challenged it. Okay. We are headed in this country to rule by the lowest common denominator of humanity, meaning MAGA heads. So, in the upcoming election in November, please go out and vote out all Republicans. That's the only way we're going to get through the next 20 or 30 years without this country turning into a MAGA head dystopia. Okay, let me take a deep breath after all that. I've got good news coming up. Okay, good news. The panic in some misinformed leftist environmental circles has been diminishing over the fears about 5G. Oh, man. There are such things as misguided lefties out there. Hopefully, lefties have this program, the Midnight Skeptic, to listen to set themselves straight. Okay. 5G may sound exotic, but it's nothing more than an industry term for a suite of radio technologies that broadcast at higher frequencies than most of our existing cellular networks, which are, 4G. Radio waves do not cause cancer. Please get that out of your heads, lefty environmentalists. Take it from the Midnight Skeptic. Use your cell phones. But just, if you walk around on a sidewalk or next to a street looking at this damn cell phone, just be careful. Put it in your pockets or something until you walk to your destination. Don't keep burying your face in it. Okay. That's the only real danger from cell phones. They do not cause cancer. All right. Whew. Not good news, but inevitable news. Marcus Lamb, capital Lamb, a conservative anti-vaxxer televangelist, has died of, you guessed it, COVID. He was a bishop in the Church of God and founded Daystar TV network in 1997. Daystar network. On his show, he exhorted his followers to not get vaccinated, but instead to pray. Jonathan Lamb, his son, in December said that his father's COVID battle was the result of a spiritual attack from the enemy. The elder Lamb was 64. And who is the enemy? The woke left. Of course that's the enemy. Deep breath. Factoid. More than 90%. Scratching my mustache. 90% of UFO sightings, or as the preferred term is now, unidentified aerial phenomena, 90% of them come in from English-speaking countries around the world. Credulous, unquestioning English-speaking countries are supposed aliens that come to visit us in UFOs or UAPs. Are they discriminating against Chinese speakers or Spanish speakers or Russian speakers? I don't know. Why do they just make appearances in English language speaking countries? I don't know. Ask the next alien that you run across. Okay. California, Assembly Bill 1887, which was passed and signed by Governor Brown in 2016, restricts state agencies from requiring employees to travel to any state that has enacted a law that discriminates on the basis of sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression. Gender expression is kind of a problematic term. It can mean a lot of things. Okay. But anyway, California Assembly Bill 1887 must be hurting Texas because Ken, the criminal attorney general, Paxton, has sued because it here's his words here, infringes on a state's right to practice as much gender discrimination as it pleases. Now those last 5 words are not part of his quote, but states' rights to discriminate against anybody it feels like. We don't like those trannies or gays or lesbians. We don't want them polluting our pure Christian state. Okay, there's a list of states that California will not pay for travel to those states. It won't pay for its officials and politicians to do that. Okay, other states on the no-go-to list are Alabama, Idaho, Kansas, Kentucky, Mississippi, North and South Carolina, Oklahoma, South Dakota, and Tennessee. Arkansas is soon to join that list. And the Supreme Court, Ken Paxton's lawsuit against California wound its way up to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court last year passed on making a ruling on it. Okay? The only two that wanted to make a ruling on it were Samuel Alito and Clarence Thomas. And you know how they would vote on this. They would vote against California. But anyway, that was April 26th of 2021. The states mentioned here are the most backward, discriminatory, white nationalist states that we have in this country. And riff here. I've been hearing things about a coming civil war. And I'm genuinely afraid of some version of that happening. The MAGA heads are essentially the gun nuts. So they have these AK-47s and Uh, the, the Civil War won't be between Deep South slave owners and the rest of the country. It'll be, I don't know, red state, blue state, libs controlled states versus the GOP cultist ruled states. That's essentially what this list is here. Okay. Okay. I've got to read excerpts from a couple of articles here to fill out the hour here. Okay, Dateline, Arizona. Mormons shrouded 7 years of sexual abuse. MJ was a tiny black-haired girl, just 5 years old, when her father admitted to his bishop in the Mormon church that he was sexually abusing her. The father, a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and an admitted pornography addict, was in counseling with his bishop when he revealed the abuse. The bishop, who was also a family physician, followed church policy and called what church officials have dubbed the quote-unquote helpline for guidance. But the call offered little help for MJ. Lawyers for the church, widely known as the Mormon Church, who staffed the helpline around the clock, told Bishop John Herod, Herrod, not to call police or child welfare officials. Instead, he kept the abuse secret. They said, this is the helpline people, they said, "You absolutely can do nothing," Herod said in a recorded interview with law enforcement. Finally, law enforcement got involved here. Herod continued to counsel MJ's father, who is Paul Douglas Adams, for another year and brought in Adams' wife, Leiza, capital Leizza, Adams, in hopes she would do something to protect the children. She didn't. Herod later told Bishop Robert Kim Maury, Mauzy, Mauzy, who also kept the matter secret after consulting with church officials who maintained that the bishops were excused from reporting the abuse to police under the state's so-called clergy-penitent privilege. Okay, I don't want to go on with this article, but I will read just a couple of bits out of it. The Associated Press has obtained nearly 12,000 pages of sealed records from an unrelated child sex abuse lawsuit against the Mormon Church in West Virginia. What are they trying to do? Out-Catholic the Catholics? Jeez. It goes on about these documents, the revelation that Mormon officials may have directed an effort to conceal years of abuse in the Adams household sparked a criminal investigation of the church by Cochise County, this is Arizona, attorney Brian McIntyre, and a civil lawsuit by 3 of the Adams children. Okay, enough of this, really. The Mormon Church, they have a fixation on sex. I mean, sex is nice, but um, especially the fundamentalist, sister wives sect of the Mormon Church. It's just, I've maintained all along that, and I've said it on a lot of shows, this is nothing new. All religions, in my view, are misogynistic. And the worst of the worst is Islamic Taliban fundamentalist Sunnis. Okay. Another article, I will pick out excerpts from this. Okay. Afghanistan. Report, women being destroyed by Taliban rule. Well, duh. The lives of Afghan women and girls are being destroyed by a suffocating crackdown by the Taliban since they took power nearly a year ago. Amnesty International said in a report released Wednesday. I got this about 2 weeks ago and cut it out, and I'm finally getting around to reading it to you guys. After they captured the capital, Kabul, in August of 2021 and ousted the internationally backed government, the Taliban presented themselves as having moderated since their first time in power in the 1990s. All right, on and on and on and on. Instead, they promised a bunch of changes. They're, in addition to being misogynistic, they're also liars. I'm assuming that Allah approves of their lying. Okay, instead they formed an all-male government stacked with veterans of their hard-line rule that has banned girls from attending school from 7th grade on, imposed all-covering dress that leaves only the eyes visible, and restricted women's access to work. Amnesty International also said that the Taliban have also decimated protections for those facing domestic violence. They've detained women and girls for minor violations and contributed to a surge in child marriages. Religion, religion, religion. Okay, Amnesty International went to Afghanistan and mainly in Kabul. And the Taliban detained many women. Among them were women that were detained for protesting who described torture at the hands of Taliban guards, including beatings and threats of death. And then this article goes on to, describe the types of beatings that these women and girls suffer. Do I think we should have stayed in Afghanistan to protect women, 50% of the population? No, I'm glad we're out. I feel sorry for Afghani women. It's just very unfortunate that religion controls as much of the world that it does. Okay, I gotta turn the page here. I wish I could turn the page on the history of this country and just eliminate the Republican Party after 1970. That's when the Republican Party, in my opinion, went off the rails and became a party of disaffected, stupid jerks. And I have to admit that I voted for Ronald Reagan, his first run for presidency. I thought that Jimmy Carter was not a good president, not a strong president, not up to foreign relations as it should be done. So I voted for Reagan. I'm sorry about that. Now that I am becoming more aware and, most importantly, more woke, I would say to you, listeners and viewers out there, that the Republican Party is off the rails, and I'm sorry I ever voted for one. And I am still, mainly because of laziness, a registered Republican. Okay. Here's something that's, in my warped sense, is a bit funny. How the MAGA head cult of the orange sociopathic bloat bag relishes just owning the left or owning the libs. With the death count rising, at least a few Republicans appear to be worried about what their party and its allies have sown, S-O-W-N. Okay. This article was attached to a chart that correlated deaths from COVID and states that voted for the orange sociopathic bloat bag. Okay. In an article this month for Breitbart, the right-wing website formerly run by Steve Bannon, John Nolte argued that the partisan gap in vaccination rates was part of a liberal plot. Liberals like President Biden, Nancy Pelosi, Dr. Anthony Fauci, and Howard Stern have tried so hard to persuade people to get vaccinated because they know, liberals know, that Republican voters will do the opposite of whatever they say. This is written by Nolte. Let's see. John Nolte. He's on Breitbart now. His argument is certainly bizarre, given that Democratic politicians have been imploring all Americans to get vaccinated and many Republican politicians have not. But Nolte did offer a glimpse at a creeping political fear among some Republicans. Quote, "Right now, a countless number of Trump supporters believe they are owning the left by refusing to take a life-saving vaccine," he wrote. In a country where elections are decided on razor-thin margins, does it not benefit one side if their supporters simply drop dead? Nolte wrote. MAGA heads, if they refuse to get vaccinated and then they do drop dead, like that televangelist that I talked about earlier in the show, I say, what the hell? Let them drop dead. That's mean to say, and I feel somewhat guilty about saying it, but that's the Midnight Skeptic's prerogative of saying something like that. Okay. Here's an article. It's not really an article. It's an opinion piece by Michelle Goldberg, and I really like her. And she's a columnist for the New York Times, and I see her now and then. I think I already mentioned this earlier in the show. that I see her now and then on my MSNBC lefty propaganda shows. She's usually on Chris Hayes or Rachel Maddow. Anyway, she wrote a column called The Problem of Political Despair. And I myself kind of am in a constant battle not to feel depressed or overly anxious about the direction of our country. I really believe that in the end, the Republican Party as we know it will just fade away into some kind of oblivion to be replaced by responsible, knowledgeable, but opinionated Republicans. You know, Liz Cheney might be one. But there's the Lincoln Brigade. Is that what they call themselves? The anti-Trumper Republicans. And they bought ads in the 2020 election against Republicans, and specifically against Donald, the orange sociopathic bloat bag. I'm not going to say his last names, but anyway, there's enough real, honest Republicans out there that I think they can form an opposition party if the Democrats really do get into real power in this country. It would be a paradise on earth, I assure you. The Midnight Skeptic assures you. Okay. On Friday morning, after a night of insomnia fueled by worries about raising children in a collapsing society, I opened my eyes, started reading about efforts by Wisconsin Republicans to seize control of the state's elections, then paused to let my tachycardiac heartbeat subside. Marinating in the news is part of my job. This is being written by Michelle Goldberg. It's part of my job. I'd write about it in a journal instead of the New York Times, but political despair is an issue for the entire Democratic Party. It's predictable that with, she writes out the name of the previous guy, out of the White House, Democrats would pull back from constant, frenetic political engagement, but there's a withdrawal happening right now from news consumption, activism, and some places, voting. That seems less a product of relief than of avoidance. Part of this is simply burnout and lingering trauma from COVID. But I suspect that part of it is about growing hopelessness, born of a sense that dislodging the orange sociopathic bloat bag has brought American democracy only a brief reprieve. Okay, I'm not going to read her entire column here, but one more paragraph. Bear with me, people out there. One redeeming feature of Trump's presidency, I made a mistake and read his name, in retrospect, was that it was possible to look forward to the date when Americans could finish it. COVID, too, once seemed like something we'd be able to largely put behind us when we got vaccinated. Sure, Trumpism. I'm not going to say his name, but ism, meaning the MAGA heads. Like the virus, would linger, but it was easy to imagine a much better world after the election, the inauguration, and the wide availability of shots. Getting rid of that guy doesn't mean that we've gotten rid of the cancer that he introduced to our country. Let's see. Okay, she goes into various state elections, and things are, if anything, even worse in the Senate, where growing geographic polarization threatens to give Republicans a near lock on the chamber. This was written, I think, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Things have looked up for Democrats in this coming November election. I think, and this is my prediction, that after the dust settles, the Democrats will emerge with about 53 or 54 senators, with the Democrats being less than that, whatever, 45 or 46. Okay. The House, I'm not so worried about it anymore. I think, and this is my prediction, and you can write me hate mail if I'm wrong. I think that the Democrats will retain control of the House by about 10 seats, 12 seats, maybe, if we're lucky. If we're really fortunate, and if the people who I think are just dumb MAGA heads decide that they want a functioning government, maybe we'll control the House by 15 seats. Hopefully. Okay. Whew. There was one more article here, but I'm going to save it for next time. And it's an article about anti-transgender bias sparks laws in red states. Oh, man. The MAGA heads, the Republicans, the stupid-ass cult followers of the orange sociopathic bloat bag are just full of fear, full of hate, and they have gathered around their champion of fear and hate, the orange sociopathic bloat bag. And I do fear that there's enough violent followers of him that we may be in for a mini civil war, M-I-N-I, civil war. Okay.